Literally felt like I was waiting for a date. And I'm like, where is she?
I was waiting too. I was like, oh, I guess. All right. Okay. I'm just gonna.
Not jumping
I was
on
like,
right now.
okay, it's fine.
Oh, that's hysterical. How are you today?
I'm good. I just cried a bunch. So,
Something in the air.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did you cry a bunch today?
Yeah, I cried a bunch last night. And then I started reading this just a great childhood story to Juliet. And I'm like bawling.
It's children's book.
This is her first book. Yeah, no big deal. And I'm just like crying. Anne Lamott wrote the introduction, and that's all. I mean, I only read like 2 pages, and I'm like bawling because she just nails it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be reading that tonight. That is for sure. I'll read a couple pages because it just exemplifies obviously everything Ramdas lived for, exemplifies what we're doing in the yoga teacher training and just in life.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's so, even just little things like that remind me of Ramdas and Maharaji. I'm like, yeah, they really get it, obviously, but like, wow, they really get it. And Ramdas in particular is so good at making it accessible to absorb. 100%. And I think
she even says in like the introduction that, you know, he always talks so openly and honest and real about his experiences. And like, who knows, he never got over his neuroses. You know how he always talks about his neuroses.
Yes.
And I love that because it's like kind of what we talked about yesterday is like that idea of what a yogi is not a real thing. It's just like being you and being aware and also opening your heart and all these good things. So crying. I know I went to bed last night and I'm like crying just for a multitude of reasons, but I think really it was like a release of a lot of things that I'm sure I make up in my mind. And Josh is like, all right, good night. And it's dark in the room. And he's like, good night. And I'm like, night. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, you know, but he's like, what's wrong? You know, and I'm like, I don't even know. Like, it's not even talk aboutable. You know, it's nothing is wrong. I'm just like releasing.
I feel like that's when I know it's a release. You know, because we get in our heads, we're like, there's no reason for me to be crying. Why am I even crying?
Right, you become victims.
I'm ridiculous. And then it's like, it doesn't matter, first of all, why. Right. If you feel like crying, just cry. Second of all, there are a million reasons. We just can't think of them.
Sometimes, like when we do, like I started to give him reasons last night, and I'm like, it sounds awful. Like, I just sounded like I'm like blaming everyone for things that I'm thinking about and feeling, but I'm not blaming. I'm just like observing my place. Of course, Ellie's going to chime in today. Come here, Elle. Which was like the family dynamic since I had Juliet, you know, like I just want everyone to be together and like staring at the baby. Like that's my romanticized version of this life because that's all I want to do. That's like the maternal instinct is just to like be with the baby. And when she's awake, give her your full attention because it's like, she's new in this world. And I'm just, you know, I try to wrap my head around like, why doesn't everybody else want to do this? And, you know, always layered right now with COVID. And like, these are the people that I spend my time with are my, you know, Mikey, Lucy, Josh, and Mikey's girlfriend. Cheyenne, she might be watching this. Hi, Cheyenne. She's in the yoga teacher training. And I know everybody has their own lives, but I just want to be like, but hers just for now, like we need, I don't know. Anyway, that's just where my head was at last night. And so and this is part of dropping the ego is the sharing that I'm doing right now and that we're doing. I don't remember what I was just about to say. Oh, come on, thought, come back.
Dropping the ego
and wanting everyone to pay. Oh, that's what it was. Sometimes I feel like I'm just trying to keep her quiet so everyone else can just go about their regular business. And that's not fair. You know, it's not fair to me. It's not fair to her. And then also I realize I'm not speaking up either. Because I've learned it's not about me not wanting to make the other person uncomfortable. It's I don't want to feel uncomfortable with the conversation. And also I don't like making people feel uncomfortable, but I am not responsible for people's reactions. That took me 40 years to.
That's a big one.
It is. Yeah. So I'm I'm going to have a conversation with everyone tomorrow and just tell them how I feel and see what happens from there.
Right. And even just that, like whether you get the outcome that you've like imagined in your head or not, it's just at least the expression and like the letting go of the ego and that's going to dissolve a ton of what you're feeling too, because a lot of it is just we want to self-express, but we feel limited, we feel constricted, and we can't self-express, but that's all ego too.
Yeah, totally.
That's our mind being like, you can't say something about this or whatever it might be.
Disrupt everyone else's life.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be worse because you're saying that, yeah, I know. There's all these made up things.
Yep.
Yeah. So
yesterday we said, we'll never get rid of the ego. It'll always be there. It's just being mindful of it. And then like taking action to what will help dissolve it just a little bit more.
And I think taking action, like through these practices, taking action, not all the time, but a lot of the time now happens sooner versus stewing in whatever story we're telling ourselves or whatever I'm telling myself. I won't stew in it as long as I used to. I mean, I've stewed in stories for years. Now I try to keep it down to like a day.
Well, yeah, it's like, so I'm in a group coaching program for anyone who doesn't know that already, which is everyone who watches this except for Jen. So now you know. I'm in a group coaching program, which I love. And I was in that session before we started this video, and I turned my video off because I just felt all these limiting beliefs coming up. And I just needed to cry. And so I turned off my video to not like disturb the presentation of the coach for like the whole group. And I bawled my eyes out and I just sobbed it out. And I was like, there isn't a reason except that I am having detachment issues from my ego. Like I'm having, I'm removing these parts of me that I don't need anymore. I don't need to believe that I can't do something. I don't need to believe that I'm not good enough. And so I'm shedding that layer and I'm like peeling off this like thick skin or like breaking off this piece of me that has been part of me for this long. And I was like, oh, I just need to like cry it out. And then at the end, when she opened it up to everything, to Q&A, I was like, I have a confession. I had to turn off my video because I needed to cry my eyes out. And I shared my story and everyone was like, we support you and we love you and thank you for sharing. And like, we feel that way too. And it's like, yeah, all of us are supported and all of us are constantly going through a recognition of ego or in a recognition of the things no longer serving us. And then you choose, you either hold on and it's painful or you let go and it's painful.
Oh, yeah.
It's
no matter what.
Those are your choices. It's going to hurt no matter what. So either you hold on to it and let it hurt you, or you let go of it and it hurts and then it's over once it dissolves.
Well, she says eloquently in this book that those are the portals of grace.
The portals of grace.
I know, it's like going to make me cry just saying I can't. It's so good, but it's so true. All of the
grace. Yeah, it's exquisite.
Grief is a portal of grace. All of it is a portal of grace, but the pain and all the qualities associated with any kind of pain are really the portals of grace. And that was one thing that I wanted to touch on when we talked in the last video, was that I think that most of you that find yourself here in this training, I mean, you were brought for some reason. I'm sure you have a story, just like Camille and I had a story. Mine's more in the, I didn't really get into it yesterday, but it's in the yoga teacher training, the story of, you know, what brought me to yoga. And it's a multitude of things, but it's usually pain that we end up on this path because we're seeking, or I don't know if I mean, we are seeking, but there's a calling, you know, for more. And so we heed the call. Well, I guess we did talk a little bit about that yesterday. So
yeah, and it doesn't always have to be this huge painful thing, but it's sometimes just like this aching. You know, it can just be a subtle aching of like something doesn't feel right in what I'm doing. And like this, and it's like, ow, ow.
prickly.
Like these band-aids of what society tells me aren't working. So yeah, then you like get this call of like, there's something else that will work better. There's something else that makes more sense. And then you find Joy's yoga teacher training and your mind is blown.
And many, many other paths. But yeah, no, it is true.
All different. There's so many paths and they all lead to the same place. But this is a great one. So we're both really excited that you're all here.
So today we're talking about the invitation to start to drop the ego. So I'm not sure if you had a chance to check your messages, if you received a message from one of our students today yet.
I did.
Okay. I thought that was really sweet. So one of our students watched our video from yesterday about, or the last video that we put out about just how we came to yoga and how it affected her, and just, you know, I don't know, I was really touched to get that text this morning, and that's exactly what we want, is to be able to touch lives that way, and for you to also feel like you're in a space to open your heart and to feel the pain and to feel connected and to know that we are all the same in some way. And we're unique enough that we can all learn from each other as well. And I feel like that was, you know, she was coming from a vulnerable place and a non-ego place to reach out and say that to us. And so that's the theme of what we're going to talk about and invite you into today, is dropping the ego. My teacher always used to say, there's a little vase at the door. Make sure you drop your ego at the door before we would come into our yoga class or our yoga teacher training. And it was always such a good reminder and sort of examination of like, what even is the ego? A lot of people get it confused with inflated ego, thinking that they're great. But the ego is also that tapping on you that tells you that you're not good enough. And I mean, it's basically everything that prevents you from living through your heart and living in a free way. So there's many different types of ego that really have nothing to do with an inflated ego. I mean, that's one of them, thinking that you're great. I mean, you can think you're great, but thinking that you're better than everyone.
Superior.
Right, superior. We are all superior beings, equally. So, yes. Camille, you posted a video the other day on Instagram of you dancing, and I was like, I just loved it. It was whenever I see anyone dancing. So I have a story about a Krishna Das concert. I don't know if you remember the story, if I told it in the yoga teacher training. Yeah.
I loved that story.
It just impacted me so much. And every time I think about it, so it kind of reminded me of that, except it doesn't make me feel any certain way inside when I see people dance freely anymore. But I don't know how long ago it was. Years ago at a Krishna Das concert or kirtan, there was probably, I don't know how many people he has there, maybe like 500 people. And most people sit down the whole time and it's call and response and we're chanting and singing together. And there was just this one woman who was literally in her own world, just dancing and spinning around and acting well, not acting anyway. She was just being herself. She was lost in being, which reminds me of Soul, which we watched last night, by the way. So she was lost in the moment. And I was with a group of women, and we all started to pick her apart, and then I sat down and we were chanting and and it started to like sit with me a little, like it started to settle in what we just did. And I'm like, the only reason why I did that was because I wish I could do that. I wish I could be that free and not care. If I feel like dancing at a concert and I'm the only one doing it, it doesn't matter what anybody's thinking. So that's why I was picking her apart, is because I saw something in her that I wished I could be. And my conditioning, kind of came out of like, let's pick her apart and say, she's so this, she's so that. And so I mentioned that to the group that I was with. I said, I actually just take back everything I said. And the reason why I even said any of that is because I want to be like her. I wish I could do that, and I can't. I'm not there yet. So fast forward to the other day, and I see Camille dancing on Instagram. And it was just genuine, when you just see something that is genuine, you can tell the difference between someone that's trying to put on a front, to get attention and whatever with that. And when someone is like genuinely just in their pure essence. So Camille was in her pure essence, and I loved that. And then I wasn't really thinking about it later that day or the next day when I was singing to Jules, but I started to record it. I don't even know why I did, actually. But then I was like, you know what? I'm going to post this because like I was inspired by you. Like, who cares? And when it's from a pure and genuine place, I think that people can feel that. And we're fortunate enough to have social media. I know we talk social media down all the time, saying it's awful and things like that, but it really has a great purpose, I think, of sharing, period, right? Like there's a great opportunity to share with other people, especially now where there's so much loneliness, being genuine and pure. So I was like, I'm just going to share this. And if it makes someone laugh or cringe or cry or whatever, I mean, I didn't really even care. I was like, I'm just going to do it. Me singing, like that's ridiculous, but it was fun. And the response was great. Like it was touching to read how it actually did affect people. And not the goal, but maybe like an underlying goal is that when we live in this detached, not really detached, but setting the ego aside point of view, we're giving others permission to live the same way. And so, yeah,
I just want to touch on that, I think that when, even for me, when I made my video, I was like, oh, are people gonna cringe at this and think I'm a weirdo? That's the ego. So you start to notice, oh, is this cringy? Is this weird? What are people gonna think? What should I have done? What should I do differently? Or what should I have done differently? So you start to notice the way your ego talks. It has
also like, I'm not even going to do it at all. Like, I'm not even going to share myself at all.
Actually, I shouldn't do this. You'll start to notice the verbiage that your ego uses, but then you just do it anyway. Because you hear that verbiage, you hear those words, and then you come into your heart, and this is your heart, this is your true essence, and you say, this is fun, this was playful, this is me being goofy and silly and fun, and I love to dance, I love to spin around, this is what makes my heart shine. So I hear all these things that the ego is telling me, but I'm going to do it from this place. I'm going to do it anyway because it's truth. And then you start, but the more you do things like that, the more you recognize, you understand the relationship that your ego has with yourself. And you're able to then say, okay, what are these things I'm hearing? Okay, these are the things that are ego. These are the things that are true. And you're able to distinguish between the two. So the ego's still there. Yeah.
Take that. That's the choice. Remember the roads.
Right. Yep. That's the choice. The ego is still there, but you become aware of it. You become aware of its verbiage. And I actually had a teacher that told me, give it a name. You know, it's ego / inner critic. Give it a name. What does it look like? What does it have a different voice? You know, and
Very
sometimes
Shauna-ish. Was it Shauna?
it wasn't Shauna.
No, okay, all right.
No, it was one of my sensory awareness in my sensory awareness program. But like, give it a name. Name it. You know, is its name Fred, and it talks like this and tells you that you're dumb and you look stupid and don't ever do that. And then it becomes this silly thing of like, oh yeah, those are mean words.
Like, what's up, Fred?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can just hang out with.
Oh, hey, I hear you. You're going to go in this category and I'm not going to pay mind to you because this is my heart and this is what I want to do, is be fun and open and playful and silly.
Or not, or be sad or vulnerable.
Be sad and vulnerable. Yeah.
I guess that is being playful, is being vulnerable too. Vulnerability.
Right. All of those things, all of the true, real emotions, those are what's real. And you'll be able to distinguish better between, it's the language. The language is huge. Your heart center isn't putting you down, you know, and there can be some constructive words of like, oh, okay, that wasn't the best. We can do it a little different next time. Rather than from your ego will be like, that sucked. You're horrible. Whatever the case may be.
Embarrassed of yourself. Right. Picking apart your body, your hair, I know.
Exactly. It's the language, and you start to, and then the ego gets quieter and quieter, and that will take time, all the time. But yeah, and it'll get to that point. But it's that, those little practices of like, oh, my heart isn't gonna say mean things to me, you know?
No.
It's like,
that would not be the heart.
But I didn't even know that existed either until I knew it existed. And then I was like, oh my God, yeah, I can. And sometimes it's really hard because the ego is sneaky. But I was like, oh yeah, like my true essence, my heart center isn't going to tell me, maybe don't do that. You're not good enough for it.
No.
My heart would never tell me that.
My heart doesn't make you cringe.
No, the heart is like, you're hilarious, or you're sad and vulnerable, and that's amazing, and you're being true to yourself. Okay, cool.
Well, and then the other thing is like, when you do listen to it more and more, that's when you become, you know, you tap into your intuition. Like that is the intuitive heart, and your body, you know, it comes back to your body. So the invitation with this can begin in your physical practice, which you'll learn about as you go through the training. When you practice, well, and some of you might not be doing the physical practice. So when you meditate or you're doing your physical practice, to become aware of your body and really listen to what it's telling you and make adjustments based on that. You know, instead of, so like with the physical practice, you see the ego get involved a lot when you're in a class and people are doing crazy posture, or you think someone's doing yoga better than you. We'll just leave it at that. You think someone's doing yoga better than you. Even saying those words are funny. And you try to keep up with that person. And you can't, because for whatever reason, they're stronger, they're more flexible. Oh, you just think that they're better than you. And so everybody is...
Even thinking the teacher is better than you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was one of the hardest things that I eventually found with teaching, is I just wanted, and I used to say that in my classes, like I want everyone to feel like we're practicing together. And I'm just kind of this guide, that's all, because I know a couple extra words and I'm saying those words and you're doing your thing, but really just listening to your body. So when you practice anything, you just notice how you're feeling in your body, not in comparison to anything else, and make adjustments based on that. And even just to simplify that more on a day-to-day basis, how many of you take time out in the middle of a stressful situation to rest? If you're feeling stress or anxiety, that's your body being like, hey, it's Fred again. Or maybe that one's like Joan. I'm telling you that I need you to, can you listen to me? Can you listen to me? And, you know, we don't take that time out. We're always like later, 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 later. When is later? You know, so we ignore what's going on because our ego, that's part of the ego, it takes over thinking that we have to accomplish something. We have to be the best at yoga in our yoga class, or we have to be the best at work. We have to be what is the best anyway? So the invitation is to listen to your body and make those adjustments. What does that mean? If you're in a posture, are you taking it too far, or are you not taking it far enough? Sometimes that, you know, that's the ego too, to say, I'm afraid to go deeper into this. Even meditation, I'm afraid of what might happen. So you notice that, the awareness, and then the next step would be to make a slight adjustment. But even just having that awareness is like the start, like Camille was saying before. It all begins with that.
And that's the biggest thing about the ego, is that it's based in fear. And it comes in sneaky ways, as I said, but it is based in fear. That's why it's the ego. That's why it's your inner critic versus your inner wisdom, your inner heart. And so there are a million different practices, but yoga is a great one because you get to know your physical body, which is like we talked about in the last video. You get to know your physical body. And also we'll touch upon the chakras too. And even like with the heart chakra, like this morning for me in particular, I had shoulder pain this morning behind my shoulder blades. And I just looked in the mirror and I was like, I have shoulder pains because my heart hurts. You know, my heart hurts and I have shoulder pain. And guess what? I bawled my eyes out. I have zero shoulder pain right now. Zero.
Carrying too much weight on your shoulders. It's a real thing.
It's all connected. It's all connected. And it's the same thing, you know, the heart, the throat, and the third eye. Your third eye will be your ego center. Your third eye is your intuition. So it's that removing of the ego so that your intuition can shine through, like what you mentioned. You know, we have this connection between heart and intuition, but how we need to pay attention. We need to notice and be able to compartmentalize. Okay, these thoughts aren't serving me. They're mean and nasty. The
difference, I think, between those two that is difficult when you're confused of what is ego and what is intuition.
Right.
Is the intuition is, and that's why it gets ignored so often. It's like flutter, you know, it's like a little like feather brushing against your skin, and the ego is a tap.
Yeah, right? The ego is like, hey, I'm here, listen to me. And the intuition is like, yes.
Right, it's like ethereal.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but that's why we do these practices, to hone in on our body, our wellness, our mind, body, spirit, our understanding of self. That way we can put, okay, ego's here. Ego's saying these things. Ego is judgment and comparison and fear. Like being in a yoga class and being like, oh, I can't do that pose, but not even trying it. Maybe you can.
Meditation is the easiest one, when you sit down and your mind is everywhere and you're like, I can't meditate. Meditation is not for me. Like it actually is.
It is. Then that's ego. And it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be uncertain, but it's also an awareness of those feelings. We're uncertain all the time. We're fearful all the time. That's okay. But it's saying it's okay that I'm scared and uncertain, but I'm going to sit here and close my eyes and see what happens anyways. And maybe for 1 minute, I'll meditate of the 20 minutes that I sat down. And that's a step forward. You know, that's a progression towards your heart, towards your true essence, towards living from that place.
It's off the mat. I think it translates into speaking from your authentic self. Like, so you start to hone into what's real, what's not, or what's the ego, what's pure. And then off the mat, how do you do that? It's like right now, I want to tell everyone that I'm sweating to death in this baby carrier. Right? So like, and then what does that do? That just kind of relaxes everyone. If you're sitting there watching this and you're getting super tense going, I don't know what my, intuition is, and I don't even know, don't start beating yourself up. It's like, come back to reality and realize, like, smell your armpit, you're a human being, or, you know, and say those things sometimes and just like alleviate that pressure. And then you're speaking from a more authentic place, which allows you to tap into who you really are, like your more natural, intuitive self, versus being like, I'm going to stand here and look like I can carry this baby all day long. And, you know,
right. Yeah, name the thing.
Right. Just name the thing, break the ice, have a conversation. It relaxes. So in the application, practical application of daily life, like when you just speak genuinely about what's going on with you without having to temper it because you're trying to look a certain way, then it just eases up on everyone. And then you'll notice other people will share, you know, and then it just becomes more of this open space, which has always been the most fun about yoga teacher training, is when everybody can do that.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I want to mention, is that we want to communicate. So, you know, the person who sent us a message this morning, we want that. We want you to send us messages. We want to communicate. We want
wrong, like there's nothing.
There's no wrong question. There's no wrong thing you can say. There's no being too vulnerable. It's another thing. We want you to break these layers or break open, you know, and we want you to share wherever you're at. Maybe you're not ready to be that vulnerable. That's okay too. So yeah, so if you don't have both of our emails or our Facebook, our Instagram, you know, you're welcome to reach out, and we want to share that. We want to be this support. We want to be this community.
And in our meetings, like chat it up, chat box.
We're going to use the chat box a lot. We want you to interact with each other and say, hey, I resonate with that, or hey, this is something that's helped me, or, you know, whatever comes to your mind. We want you to share. This is a community. It's an enJOYment tribe for a reason.
Tribe. And the one thing that we'll start to hone as we go, you know, get into a relationship with each other through the practices of yoga, is speaking from your authentic self. So, and this will be done in the most gentle way possible as we go through. You don't have to give a gigantic backstory about why you're feeling a certain way. And we want to keep our languaging about ourselves, not blaming. Again, I guess like no tempering. So it's like about you. You're speaking about how you feel in the moment, or how you felt about something, about the way something affected you. Don't really worry about it too much, but we're going to work with that kind of language, because that's the kind of language that eventually I wish that you would start to speak to yourself, right? So you become aware. Thoughts, words, actions create your reality. And every moment of your life is an opportunity to create that reality. And so again, about the awareness thing, you're going to become very aware of your thoughts, words, and actions. And are they in alignment with how you want to serve the world and how you want to serve yourself? And that becomes more and more subtle, but we're going to work with that over it's 6 months, but I feel like we're just going to be a tribe forever. So we're going to work with that languaging, and that is part of the ego too. Like we'll come into something, like I could say right now, showing up to this video, you know, looking how I look, I obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious, but I didn't shower. I didn't try to put any mascara on. I have my pajamas on. So I could show up and say, oh, sorry, sorry, I look this way. I didn't have time because such and such and such, but blah, 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 blah. And then tell my story. I don't even need to give that backstory. I'm just showing up. This is how I am. And we just had our meeting. I didn't give you any explanation of why I think that I don't, look very presentable, but it's okay.
Right. So that's the thing is, she's getting to the point of it's okay to trim the fat of what you're trying to communicate. And in terms of we get our own selves wrapped up in what the details are and what we think is important to the story. But what's important is that Jen showed up today. That's what's important. Jen showed up, and she showed up ready to share and ready to be vulnerable and ready to be here. And she's sweaty and she hasn't showered and she has no makeup on, but that she doesn't need to explain herself in that way.
No need to explain.
She doesn't need to explain that in order to show up fully and be her true self and be this, example of her authentic
yogi being. This is what a yogi looks like.
Right. And that's the point of it, is that, you'll start to hone in on, okay, why do I feel the need to share all these details? Is it because I'm trying to make up for something or smooth something over, or
you don't want to be judged? That's the biggest one. Yeah.
Judged, so you're like, oh, I need to preemptively warn people that I am smelly and I don't look good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's fine. And even if you don't look good, then, or if you feel like you're a disaster, it's fine. Like, be a disaster then. Some days we need to be a mess. An hour before this call, I was in my group coaching. I was a mess. I was sobbing.
Right.
But that's how I was in that moment. I needed to sob and I needed to be held in that container. And I was that. That's what I was. And then I felt so much.
You don't have to carry that through for your whole day. Like,
right.
So the ego would say, today is such a bad day. It's friggin' 10:30 in the morning when that was happening to you. Know what I mean? 9:30.
Right. And now
the whole day is not ruined.
Right. I'm in this new container. And I'm feeling life-giving. I'm feeling good. I'm speaking from my heart right now. And that's how I am in this moment. In an hour from now, maybe I'll be taking a nap. Who knows?
Right. And you might be in a different, so you're always showing up, whatever, in whatever role.
Showing up with where you are in each moment.
Right. So this is reminding me of a practice that we do in every in-person yoga teacher training, where it's called a mirroring exercise. You probably remember this, Camille, where you sit with a partner. So if you can do this, if you've never done this before, and even if you have, you can do it again. Something that you can do with someone in your house. So take notes on this. Is you sit back to back first and just kind of breathe and meditate together and start to feel the energy, feel each other's energy, feel into each other's energy. And then you turn toward each other and you look in each other's eyes and you have a conversation and you get to know what the other person is thinking and feeling in that moment. Or if it's someone new, this is a really beautiful exercise with strangers. Really, that's like the ultimate in this, but you can do it with people that you know. And then you take a minute and you write down all the positive qualities that you saw in that person that you were just talking to. And then when you're done, you read those qualities to one another. This is what I saw. You're beautiful, you're bright, you're magical. I notice you're really loving and caring and wonderful and all this stuff that you see in another person. And then they read it to you. And then you sit with that for a moment and then you switch papers and you read, or you don't switch papers. I'm sorry, because you have that paper. You read your paper to yourself, because what you saw in the other is really what you're seeing in yourself every single time. It's like when you're at your own house and you think your house is a mess and you go to someone else's house that is equally messy and you don't notice their mess. You think it's beautiful. It's the same, like we see ourselves in each other. So when you see a beautiful person, when you see a loving person, when you see a compassionate person, you're seeing that quality within yourself. And also when you judge, like my story about the dancing woman, when you judge, it's because there's something in that person that is within you that wants to come out, or that you need to work through, like your shadow, the shadow side of yourself, right? So there's different ways to look at that. But in terms of positive qualities, what you see in another is what you're seeing in yourself. It's very easy to see beauty.
Whether it's an outward expression or something that's trying to come forward. So you can read your list and be like, I'm not like this, but you are. You just aren't seeing it in yourself. And then you can even
wouldn't be able to see it in the other person if you didn't know it existed.
Exactly. So then maybe you can start to tap in and strengthen those qualities that are within yourself, give more attention to those positive qualities, and it'll help you gear away from the negative thoughts that you have about yourself.
And I'm going to kind of go down an uncomfortable road right now, but I think many of us have watched more news than we care to admit in the past year. And with that comes a lot of judging. And that is also, remember, there's no separation between your spiritual life and your regular life. It's all your life. It's all spiritual. So that's another opportunity to notice when things seem horrible, right? Or you dislike someone or something that's going on so much. That is an opportunity to have compassion for yourself, number one, for feeling that way, right? Like you're creating some kind of stress in your body, and also compassion for that person that or situation that seems to be really, really wrong. It doesn't make it right. We're not, saying that bad things are okay or anything like that. But when you see that, when you're judging that, when you're feeling that, and then you're also putting anger towards it, you're creating somehow this universe of anger within yourself and more of that in the world. So it's an opportunity to become aware again. And every moment that you're thinking and being, to cultivate forgiveness and passion and love even, because it only takes an instant for someone to turn to love. And in you turning toward love, when you're recognizing anger and judgment and being able to extend that, then you don't know, your energy could be the last little thing that tips the pot into that person turning toward love. So that's a huge opportunity now. There's a lot of tension in the world, and you don't have to add to that tension within yourself or in the world. You're actually, you are a healer. If you're here, it's for a reason, and it's an opportunity for you to become healing presence in the world and not contribute to the tension and the anger and the fear that's happening in the world. So even if you can't extend a positive feeling, compassion, forgiveness, or love, you at least can start to become aware of how it's affecting you. The whole purpose apparently of this podcast is, being aware of the ego. I think that's the first step. That's really the invitation today, is to really become aware of your thoughts, words, and actions on the mat and off the mat. When you're doing anything yoga related for this course, and when you're applying it to your regular life, start to think about it as all one beautiful tapestry. And without beating yourself up, right? We're just aware of what's happening in your mind, in your body. And then if you feel comfortable taking that next step to start to make the shift, start with yourself, and then next would be extending that. So anyway.
Right. And it's these little practices that we're giving you, these little practices, so that you can start to hone in. And it's a practice. So it's okay to be gentle with yourself. It's okay that you're not nailing it every time. It's a practice. It'll happen in increments. So the first practice, or one of the practices that we are going to invite you to do, is called #ThrowAwayYourEgo. So me and Jennifer also have done this, which she talked about when I was dancing around my room. That was my throw away your ego. And then she posted her video of her singing, was it the Maha mantra?
It was the Krishna.
Yeah.
Waltzing my Krishna. Yeah, by Krishna Das.
Yeah. So, and she posted that video of her. So we want to invite you to do something similar. So do something that breaks down your ego, even just a little bit. So
send it to us. You don't even have to share with the world.
Right. You can share it with us. You can share it with our group. If you feel super called, you can post it into the world, which would be a fun exercise for you.
Tag.
You dancing, you singing, maybe you read a favorite poem of yours, anything.
Or even just off the cuff
right
poem, you know, like it
yeah.
make that place.
Make up your own song, sing your own song, do a little dance party, you know, whatever that is for you, however it shows up. Maybe you're really good at a sport or an instrument or something and you never really share it. Do it now. Take this time.
Drop into that place though. You know, don't re-record. Like if you're doing this and you're going to record it, maybe you don't record it at all and you just tell us about it. That is almost even better, honestly, because you'll be in your essence and you'll notice, hey, I was just in my essence, right? So don't re-record because you're like, oh crap, I got to get that. And that was really good. You know, like just be in your essence.
Right.
And I don't remember how I started that sentence. I had very little sleep last night. I had to back that one because it's true.
But yeah, so we want to invite you to do something to break your ego. And so however that looks,
to put your ego to bed. We don't want to say break your ego, but to put it to rest.
Put it to rest. Put it to the side.
We're going to just put it down. Sharon Salzberg says we're going to put our ego down for a little nap, tuck it in, read it a bedtime story.
Read it a story.
Yeah. Little ego. Yeah.
So that's our invitation for you. And
share it with us, even if you just tell us what it is. And it can be something as simple as, you know, like you love taking pictures of things and you take a really beautiful picture, you know, and like it does not have to be singing or dancing or anything like that, but start to see or feel into what that is for you. When you can, like, who are you really inside? You know, how do you imagine yourself to be in a situation when you don't have to worry about anything or anybody else? Like, what is your true nature? And start to come from that place. And this will be open for the whole time that we're ever in these meetings, you know, like sharing what that is or asking questions. If you have questions about it, you know, definitely reach out, ask us questions. Share. There's no wrong. There's like literally it's all just becoming ourselves.
Yeah,
that's exactly
it. All right,
my dear. All right, everyone. So actually tonight is our first meeting, but you're getting this video after our meeting. I just want to say it's very exciting that we're starting today.
We're excited to see you all tonight, which when you watch this it won't be tonight anymore, but
well, unless they're watching it right after the meeting, it's going to get sent out right after. Yeah. But all right. Awesome. Thank you, Camille.
All right. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.